It is 8:30, so we can start with our prayer. So let me share with audio, otherwise you won't listen to that. So share screen, share with audio.
सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै शांति शांति शांति.
Okay, welcome back. I hope everybody is doing fine, and let's do a small prayer for everybody who is fighting this battle for us. Okay, so we'll continue our discussion on the 7th chapter. I think we missed 1 or 2 sessions. So I will quickly recap the latest portion we were covering. We were talking about 2 categories of people. One is a set of people, either due to their maturity or due to the bad actions they have done, or due to their karma. What happens is they don't recognize the presence of Ishvara. If you remember the subject matter of the 7th chapter, we were talking about Ishvara, the God. So some people, they do not recognize Ishvara. And then we saw a second set, means such people, what happens? They will get addicted or they will get carried away by the asurika tendency, means the asuric tendencies. That means their interest would be more on sense organs and the sense objects. So we spent almost an hour on that topic. And we spent almost an hour on the next verse also, because there was a lot of question answers on that verse. So the second category of people are the people who recognize the presence of Ishvara in some form or the other. They may not recognize the Ishvara in its entirety, but at different levels they recognize the Ishvara. At least they have that much good karma, or at least they have that much maturity to understand that there is something beyond my hand. There is some intelligent order of the universe exists, and every karma I do alone will not give the result. There is something else also is there. So such people, they understand the presence of Ishvara and they try to relate with Ishvara for different goals, for different purposes. We have seen that there are 4 types of people. We saw that Arthaha. So this is the verse we saw. Chaturvito vidha bhajanti mam jana sukriti norjuna. These people are people of pious deeds. At least they have the maturity to recognize Ishvara. And they are Arthaha, Jignasu, Artharthi, and Jnani. So these are the 4 different categories of people Krishna recognized. So the 2 types of people, right? These means we talked about 2 types of punya and we talked about 4 types of devotees. Arthaha, Jignasu, Artharthi, and Jnani. And if you remember, last week I said like these 4 people are, the order of this system is slightly different. Just for the meter, we are saying that Artha, Jignasu, Artharthi, and Jnani. But the actual order is Arthaha, Artharthi, Jignasu, and Jnani. So we have seen who are they. Artha means the people who pray to God when there is a distress or sad situation or a uncomfort situation, so that time they call God. Still, it's fine. So their real goal is not Ishvara. They use Ishvara as a means to remove some of the obstacles they have. So that's the first category of devotees. So they forget about Ishvara most of the times, but when there is a trouble, they call, or at least they call Ishvara. Means the difference between an Asura and this particular person is the Asura won't even recognize the presence of Ishvara at all. And Artha recognize the presence of Ishvara, at least at the time of Arti, means at the time of sorrow or the grief. The second category is Artharthi. Artha means desires or sense objects or something they want or wealth. All these things can be considered as Artha. And some people recognize Ishvara and relate with Ishvara, Bhagavan, invoke Bhagavan for gaining some sense objects, right? So they seek wealth, they seek whatever they want, money, everything. So they again use Ishvara as a means. Their goal is the actual sense objects, because if I want to win a lottery, what I do, I go and pray to God also. Of course, I'll take a lottery ticket and I go and pray to God. That's an extreme example. But even in our day-to-day work, we really wanted to be successful. We wanted to get that promotion. We wanted to get this project accomplished. We wanted to get this done, that done, everything. So after putting our effort, we invoke the grace of Ishvara. So that is Artharthi. Again, none of these people are bad. At least they recognize Ishvara. So that is the second category. And the third category we saw was Artha, means Jijnasu. Jijnasu means the one who desires. He hasn't known Ishvara yet. Means most of us, definitely what we are doing here is Jijnasu, the role of a Jijnasu. Because we haven't fully recognized Ishvara, but we are studying Bhagavad Gita not to accomplish $1 million. Absolutely not. We are studying Bhagavad Gita to get out of our disease. Of course, it will help you to manage it, but the main goal is different, because we really wanted to know Ishvara. We really wanted to know who I am. We really wanted to know what exactly is the nature of the universe is. And we really wanted to know what is the nature of Ishvara is. So Jijnasu is a bhakta who really wanted to know Ishvara. He has not yet known Ishvara, so he invokes Ishvara. So that is the third category. And the fourth category is called Jnani. And Jnani is the one who recognizes Ishvara in its entirety. For him, the Ishvara is already recognized, and he reached his destination, and he himself has changed his identity from an individual to the Ishvara. So this is the four category of people we have seen. So Artha, Artharthi, Jijnasu, and Jnani. Any questions here? Excellent. So then let's move to the next verse. Anu, are you in? Okay, Anu is not on the Tuesday class.
तेषां ज्ञानी नित्ययुक्तः एकभक्तिर्विशिष्यते प्रियो हि ज्ञानिनोत्यर्थम् अहं स च मम प्रियः.
This is a beautiful. Tesham Jnani Nityayuktaha. Among these fourfold devotees, right? Jnani is Nityayuktaha. That is the word used. Out of all these four people, Tesham, Jnani means the last category of devotee, Jnani, the person who has known Ishvara. He is recognized as Nitya Yuktaha. Yuktaha means connected. Even the word yoga came from this root called Yuktaha. So this Jnani is connected with Ishvara. And how? What exactly is the nature of this connection? It is Nitya Yuktaha. Because the word Nitya is very important. It means anybody, what is the word meaning Nitya, if you can think?
Always.
Always. That's exactly what it is. Right? But see, I might be connected to Ishvara, right? When I pray to Ishvara. I may pray to the Ishvara, and of course, I may feel a connection. But what happens after the prayer? That connection is gone. But Jnani is 24/7, his identity is with Ishvara. As a result, he is known as Nitya Yuktaha. And this word Nitya is very, very, very powerful, because the word Nitya is the nature of Ishvara. It is the nature of Mahatmas. Means Nitya Satya, right? Nitya Satya means that Satya which is not subjected to any negation. That which is not subjected to any change in 3 periods of time. So this Jnani is connected with Ishvara 24/7, and it is always connected. So that is the first characteristics. Tesham Jnani Nitya Yuktaha. And the second characteristics of this Jnani, Eka Bhaktir Vishishyate. He excels out of all these devotees. Jnani is the highest. Highest means Krishna is saying that he is the best everything, but he is the most matured. Like you can say that one is PhD, the other one is like the masters, the other one is bachelors. You cannot say that the PhD is more great. Means of course it is the next degree. So Jnani is the highest. Eka Bhaktir Vishishyate. Like bhakti, he is devoted to that Ishvara or the higher. How? Eka, because his 100%. Whereas if you take an Artha, his devotion might be there for Ishvara. For what? To fulfill his devotion to something else. His devotion is to get out of his sickness or the problem. Whereas Artharthi, his devotion or the focus is Artha. And Ishvara he's devoted to Ishvara only as a means to get out. And Jignasu definitely, like he tried to be Eka Bhaktir to Ishvara, but I think he also will be distracted with other things. But Jnani, consciously or unconsciously, he is always be with Ishvara. So that is why it is said that it is Eka Bhaktir and Vishishyate, he excels. And then he tells, Priyohi Jnanino Tyartham. So for the wise is extremely beloved. So, and because for him, Ishvara is the most beloved thing, right? Because he has recognized that everything is Ishvara. So whenever he see a gold, he don't see the gold, he see the underlying reality behind the gold. So for him, the most dearest thing is Ishvara or the gold. So that is why for the Jnani, the beloved thing is Ishvara. And then he tells, Krishna tells, Sacha Mama Priyaha. So for him, I am the most beloved, and he is also very dear to me. Because why? He's not far away from Ishvara. He's completely united with Ishvara. So that is the theme of this verse. The Jnani, out of all the devotees, the Jnani is always united with Ishvara. I want you to just take a pause and think through the spiritual evolutionary path designed by the Gita. So the Gita or the Vedanta designs a spiritual path. One is our current state. In our current state, we operate in the world. What happens? We think that the sense organ objects are going to gratify us. So we just go after the sense objects and try to fulfill ourselves. So from there, we get a little bit of recognition that no, these sense objects are fleeting and they will change at any point of time. There is something permanent. You cannot get permanent happiness and permanent securities from the world outside, because you don't want to renounce the world, but they are not going to give me the complete happiness and pleasure. So that is the time we get into the spiritual path. And when we come to the spiritual path, right, means the only way for me to get this complete happiness and complete security is know my real nature. Means the jiva should recognize its identity with Brahman, right? So the jiva should recognize its identity with the absolute reality. Because if you look at this chapter beginning, we have seen that everything in this universe is a manifestation of that absolute reality. Anybody remembering that verse? Bhumi rapo nalo vayuhu kham mano buddhirevacha ahankara midiyam me pinnaha prakriti ashtata. If you remember, Krishna started, no means introducing him how. He said, I have two different nature. One is called para prakriti and the other one is called apara prakriti. The para prakriti is changeless and it exists always. And from this para prakriti, the apara prakriti came out. From the apara prakriti, what happened? The entire material world has emerged out. So we saw that there are 5 physical elements and 3 subtle elements. Combination of that is the entire world of names and form. And when there is an entity with a physical and subtle body, what happens? This para prakriti or the consciousness manifests in that, and that is how there is a living being exists. So the living being, as we discussed multiple times, has 3 dimensions. One is the physical dimension, which came from the apara prakriti, which constitutes the physical matter. And then the subtle body is there, which comes from the subtle matter, again part of the apara prakriti. So, the apara prakriti. And these two combination gives my physical and subtle body. And when the physical and subtle body is there, the Atma is reflected there. And that is how I feel living as a living being. And I feel an individuality. Why? Because this reflected Atma identify itself with the physical body, subtle body combination. In fact, the true identity of that reflected Atma is with the absolute consciousness, the Brahman. So as long as I identify myself with the physical and subtle body, I feel that I'm limited, I'm suffering. What happens to a jnani? This jnani has changed his identity from the limited physical subtle body to the absolute consciousness. If you really think about the bucket, the water, and the sun, the reflected sun in the bucket, if it gets identified itself with the bucket and the water, it is limited, it is muddy, it is shaky, everything. But the moment that reflection identifies its identity, when that jiva identifies, changes its identity to the absolute reality, which is the real sun, that time all the problem vanishes. And the spiritual path, we prescribe, the Gita prescribes 3 steps. One is called the karma yoga for the purity of the mind, upasana yoga for the stability of the mind. And once these 2 is done, you have to do the jnana yoga. So once the jnana yoga is done, what is going to happen is like you discover your identity with Ishvara or the Lord of the universe, and that devotee is the dearest of all the devotee. It's not because he is special to me, because he is me. That is what Krishna tells. So among the 4 devotees, the jnani is always united with Ishvara. That is what we saw. It means that the topic we saw was Nitya Yuktaha, right? So the Artha, the end goal is not Ishvara. The goal is want to get rid of Dukkham. Artharthi, again, he wants to get joy. That is his goal. And for Artha and Artharthi, Ishvara is only a means. And for Jijnasu, he wants to go beyond joys and sorrows and want to know Bhagavan. But he is not known, means the Bhagavan is not fully known to him yet. So that is the Jijnasu. And as far as Jnani is concerned, he knows Bhagavan and he knows Para Prakriti and he knows the Atma as himself. So that is the difference. And this Jnani means the one who has immediate knowledge about the truth of Ishvara, and he is also known as Tattva Vid. Vid means it came from the root Vid means to know. Tattva means the essence. So he knows the essence or the absolute of the universe. So that is what is known as Tattva Vid. Because of this knowledge, he is always united to Ishvara, and he is always known as Nitya Yukta. That is how he is represented. And then actually Jnani is again always connected with Ishvara, because as long as Ishvara is remote, right, our knowledge about Ishvara is Paro, Aksha, Anubhuti. And for a Jnani, it is a Aparoksha Anubhuti. So people try to relate with Ishvara whenever they need. Like an Artha try to relate with Ishvara by doing some prayer or some meditation or a mantra. All these things are, they are trying to relate. And the connection for the removal of some distress, it will happen only at that point of time. So they are not Nitya Yuktaha. Whereas a Jnani is definitely a Nitya Yuktaha. So more than Artha and Artharthi, a Jignasu is more connected to Ishvara, because even though the connection goes, he tried to tune to Ishvara again and again and again. So this is the difference between these three Bhakta, and why Jnani is different. One more point. So this Jnani is Eka Bhakti. We said he was also a devotee, but his devotion resolves into Atma, because he knows that I am Atma. So the difference between Jiva, Ishvara is resolved, as I explained in the just previously. I understood his identity truly with Ishvara. So that is with this devotion, and his this is the firm devotion, and because he understood that, so his devotion is strong and stable, and he is the most exalted among all the other four. So that is what it is. He is always connected with Ishvara, continuously in love with devotion. For a Jnani, I am the dearest one, and for me too, he is the dearest. Krishna tells. So that doesn't mean that we are all bad devotees. Absolutely not. In the 4th chapter, we saw, right? Each devotee approached me for different goals. And whatever they seek, I bless them in that particular form. We are going to see that in the next few verses. What exactly is this Devata Upasana versus the Brahman Upasana, etc. We are going to see that. Any question on this verse? So the gist of this verse is, there are 4 among the people, among the lucky one, who are lucky to recognize Ishvara in the Ishvara's presence in their life. There are 4 categories: Artha, Artharthi, Jignasu, and Jnani. And out of that, Artha just connected with Ishvara for removing his sorrow, and means Artharthi get connected to Ishvara only to seek pleasure. And Jignasu tried to connect with Ishvara, to know Ishvara. So, but the connection is not always uninterrupted. Whereas a Jnani already understood Ishvara, and he is Nitya Yukta, and he is Eka Bhakti, and he is Vishishyate. He is special. For him, I am the most beloved one, and for me, he is also very dear. This is what we saw. Okay, so if there is no question, let's go to, yeah.
Why
Please.
Jnani and Jignasu are called same Ekabhakta?
No, Jignasu didn't call Eka Bhakti, but his he tries to focus. Means Jnani means it is an uninterrupted Eka Bhakti. Jignasu means he recognized the value of Ishvara. He recognized the importance of knowing the self, but he has not yet discovered that identity. So all of us, we are striving our best, but we haven't identified with Ishvara. So that's why he is connected. Most of the time, he tried to connect, even though that connection is not uninterrupted. So Jignasu cannot be called as Eka Bhakti, because the Jignasu can be distracted by many things. For example, if he get a disease, he becomes an Artha, and all these things can happen. So Jignasu is a transition stage from one top to the other. So that's what it is. Jnani is the Eka Bhakti. Anybody else? Any questions?
Jnani is technically the enlightened person, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Jnani is the self-realized master. The Jnani is the highest, the one who attained moksha. So
Rajaji, is it Is it possible for a jnani to become a yoga bhrashta or to fall?
No, no, because Jnani has already accomplished the yoga, right? So out of the other three, it is called sadhana bhakti, and for Jnani, it is sadhya bhakti. He is already accomplished the goal. So the Jnani, since you asked that question, right? The word yoga prashta is an interesting word called out in the chapter 6. So in chapter 6, Arjuna asks an interesting question. The question is, you are a jnyasu. You are putting all your effort in practicing this yoga. But what happened? You didn't become a jnani and your life ended as a jnyasu. So his question was, all my effort wasted, right? I didn't enjoy the world properly, hoping that I will gain the other greatest happiness. So am I in the middle? So that to indicate that person, he used a technical word called yoga prashtaha. He was a practitioner of yoga, but he didn't reach its destination. He just got out of it. He didn't reach the last lap. So Krishna assures him that, don't worry, even whatever little you do is going to count. So to answer your question, a jnani means yoga prashta means he will have a next birth. Whereas for a jnani, technically there is no next birth, because what happens? He means, see, the sanchita karma and the prarabdha karma will be created as long as I identified with the subtle body, physical body combination. When I shift my identity from the physical body to subtle physical body, subtle body to Atma, the Atma do not have any sanchita karma or the means or any karma. So because of that lack of karma, the karmic forces will find it helpless to connect me, because I have changed my identity. So when I change my identity, what happened? The previous karmic forces, for example, if you are working in, say, Citibank, and tomorrow you move to, say, a different job, or you became retired. So a problem in the work, like a responsibility you had to do the work, that becomes redundant or obsolete when you retired, right? They cannot ask you to do, like, okay, you made a small mistake in a code here. Means while you're working, they can come back and ask you why, what, all those things. But if you're retired, what they can do? They have to accept it and move on. So even though that karma is there, you changed your identity from that karma. And as a result, there is no punarjanma for you. And for a jnani, there is no rebirth. So there is no question. To answer your question in one sentence, the jnani is not subjected to yoga prashta. That case won't arise because he do not have any other birth. But it's a good question because it connects with the chapter 6 very well. And means the specifically speaking, the yoga prashta, the word was used by Arjuna to talk about the person in jnyasu state.
Thank you, Rajeshji. So I was under the impression that yoga bhrashta indicates someone who gets deluded and, like, who falls from the path of yoga. But then, I just learned that it is someone whose yogic evolution has been interrupted.
Yep, that is true, because he didn't reach the final destination, right?
Right.
So he was committed, he was practicing, but he didn't reach the final destination. So anybody interested, refer chapter 6, verse 36 onwards. It's a brilliant question by Arjuna, because Krishna is forcing him to do the karma, not forcing. Krishna is telling, do karma yoga, upasana yoga. He said, like, if I do all these discipline and keep myself disciplined, what happens? And if I didn't reach the destination, what is going to happen to me? That's the question. Okay.
उदारा सर्व एवैते ज्ञानी त्वात्मैव मे मतम् आस्थितः स हि युक्तात्मा मामेवानुत्तमां गतिम्.
Udara sarva evaiti.
Udara.
All these Udara, the means out of sarva, ayate, out of all these things, noble one is jnani. Jnani, actually, the reason is he changes his identity to myself. Myself here means the God. So Jijnasu always see Ishvara as something different from him. Artha always see Ishvara as something different from him. And Artharthi also see Ishvara as something different from him. Whereas Jnani is known as myself. Because, and when such people like a self-realized master, he is nothing but a person who has known his true identity. I really want you to think about that Swapna Drishtanda, which is clearly highlighted in a lot of Vedantic books. So when you are in a dream, right? So you are praying to somebody. For example, you are in a dream and you are impacted by something. You are praying to God in that dream. But if it is a lucid dream, what happens? The problem vanishes, because you know that even though I am playing a role in this dream, it's only a dream, and my real identity is transcend the dream, right? Remember the word we use, immanent and transcendent. So when this jnani is means the difference between a normal devotee and jnani is jnani means, if you take the Swapna Drishtanta, jnani's case is a lucid dream. He know that my real identity is something outside of this dream world, and the entire dream world exists because of myself, right? So that identity is revealed. He shifted his identity from the dream individual to somebody outside of the dream. So let's think about these four people, right? Artha, Artharthi, Jijnasu, and Jnani in that Swapna Drishtanda, because that Swapna Drishtanda is extremely powerful to understand Vedanta. So if you think about an Artha, what happens? He has a problem, like the Corona example we have been talking so far. He has a problem, he do not have a solution. So he is praying to an entity which is beyond his sensory grasp. So that is what the Artha happens. The Artharthi also is same. So in that dream world, you wanted to win a lottery or you wanted to gain success. So you pray to Ishvara. Whereas Jijnasu knows that, okay, my identity, somebody tells this Jijnasu, or this Jijnasu got to know from some books or some masters, or because of his karma, because they say it is definitely because of this karma, you can come to the Vedanta. So Jijnasu knows that there is something outside of this normal world, which I need to pursue. So he started studying, contemplating, and everything. So he is trying to become a kind of a person in a lucid dream, but he has not yet reached. Whereas Jnani, what happened? He already revealed, means all the true identity is already revealed to him. And he act as myself. And he, even though he plays a role, he is identified with Ishvara. Then what happens? He is Astita, Sahi Yuktatma. He is always steadfast because his knowledge is firm, he is stable, and he abides in me because his identity is me. That is what Krishna tells. So then he tells, this is the highest goal. Means he always abide in the highest goal. Highest goal means the nature of Ishvara. So let's try to understand a little bit more because some words are there. So he tells, out of all the devotees, all these devotees are exalted, but all of them recognize me in some form or the other. But Jnani, the difference between Jnani and the other is, Jnani is not different from Bhagavan. He is the one whose mind is completely absorbed in Bhagavan. And he is not identified with the body, mind, intellect, Maya. And he is ever Yuktatma and is ever united with Atma. And actually, his only goal is Bhagavan, and because he don't have anything else to gain. That doesn't mean that he won't act in the world. He will act, he will be more busy, he will do more things efficiently, and he fulfills all his responsibility, but he knows that he don't have anything else to accomplish because he is already reveling in the highest possibilities of life. This is always connected with Ishvara. Again, that is the key point. So again, it's a elaboration of, or Krishna just praises the role of that jnani. And let's go to the next verse.
Rajaji, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I had a question about that I wanted to ask you
Please.
for a while about the Jnani, and the comparison of the Jnani being a lucid dreamer.
Yep.
Like who realizes that this is the problems are illusory.
Right.
It's a dream problem.
Mm-hmm.
My question was, Rajaji, isn't there a risk of falling into a trap of escapism if you take that attitude of a Jnani?
No, because the lucid dream means, one thing we need to underline and keep ourselves warned is every example has a limitation, right? So example is, drishtanta means it just conveying a truth. Like I always say, right, one of the classic example is when you say, "Oh king, your face is like a moon." That doesn't mean that his face is moon. It's only you're using an example to convey a message. The lucid dream example just made to the point that you are in a particular state of experience, right, or a state of consciousness. You are in a dream world and you are acting there. And when you typically act in the world, what is the problem? You are bound by your likes and dislikes. You are bound by the possibilities of worries and anxiety. Correct? So you're extremely worried. And what Gita or the Vedanta is advocating is, suppose that worry and anxiety are under control. Means we are not saying that it won't be completely there, because as long as you live, you have to have emotions. And as long as you have emotions, there will be a little bit of worry, anxiety, and all the emotions will be there. But imagine that emotions are completely under control and you have complete freedom in action. That's all we meant. When you have freedom in action, because right now I don't have freedom in action, because whenever I try to act, for example, if you are invited to a, say, Madison Square Garden and ask you to address 22,000 people at a time, right? Even if you have skill, right, what is going to happen sometimes?
Nervousness.
You are worried about the outcome. The nervous, right? Means you want the outcome, but there is a difference. You are extremely emotionally dependent upon a particular outcome.
Absolutely.
Every time we do, whether it is the education of our child, or whether the test we do, or whether the job we perform, at any point of time, we are extremely emotionally dependent upon a particular outcome. And a little bit of that is helpful because, as you said, right, if you have no desire, what is going to happen? The life will be completely stagnant. Nothing will happen. No, that is not what we want. Means this is the difference of Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga will tell you to act rigorously, but the action has to be optimized. So how do you stabilize? How do you stabilize your action in such a way that you have extremely freedom in action? So the word Naishkarmya in Bhagavad Gita, which is used in 3rd chapter, 4th chapter, 2nd chapter, I think we started seeing that in the 2nd chapter on Sunday. So 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and 5th, you see that Krishna defines how to act. You are supposed to act rigorously, just like any normal person act, you will act. But the difference is that people do not have the freedom in action. They do not have freedom in action. Their action is always subjected to worry, anxiety, stress, and everything. But a jnani, he knows that, none of this outcome is going to affect me, my real nature. So I can go and do what needs to be done clearly. And he will accomplish that very well. So you will see that there is efficiency factor in your action. It increases. And there is a lot of neurological studies happened. For example, there is a famous science, even the beginning of 1900, this study has happened in neurology. Neurology tells like how the human brain evolved from a reptilian to mammalian to a human brain. When it came to a human brain, one of the key skills you got was you have the ability to stabilize. Like typically for a animal, like it is the sensory input, the response. But human being can process it, stabilize it, and the more stability you have, you become more human. That is what the neurology tells. There is a scientist called Gray Walter. Gray Walter means it is 100 years almost. That's the time it started. And very recently, in a lot of modern development, you have seen the development of this basal ganglia and all such things. And there is a wonderful book I would refer. It is called Brain and Emotional Intelligence. In our library, it is there. Brain and Emotional Intelligence. Audio book is there. It is by Daniel Goleman. And this book talks about this idea. You have to have this freedom in action. And that's all the Jnani gets. It is not an escapism. So the moment we talk about dream, a couple of mistakes can happen. One is we feel that the world is illusionary. No, the world is not illusionary. The world is relative reality, not illusionary reality at all. So as long as we live in the world, the problems of the world is our problem, and we cannot escape. That is very clear. Let's be very clear on that. Okay. So with that, so let's see the final verse.
Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha.
Very interesting verse. Krishna is not going to scare you. He said, Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha, the fourth line. Sa Mahatma Durlabha. Such a great soul, the Jnani, it is very hard to find. So it's not that everybody is a Jnani. Very rare to find. Why? Because he tells, Bahunam Janmana Mandi. Only after many lives. Jnanavan Mam Pravartayate. So the wise person come and know me. When he comes to know me, he comes to know me as Vasudevaha Sarvamiti. Everything in this universe is Vasudeva. Vasudeva means Brahman or the absolute reality. So a person after a lot of birth, when only he will come to know this truth. It is not going to happen in one day or the other. So you can see that in the evolutionary process. So the nature takes care of evolution when you are a living being. A unicellular organism is evolved into a human being. And once the evolution reaches the human state, what happens? Next evolution is a psychosocial evolution, as the famous scientist Julian Huxley had put. The evolution of the mind has to happen, and the mind becomes stable, and you come to know as means the truth, and it is going to take a lot of birth. This is not to discourage us, so let's try to see what exactly he meant. He said, at the end of many births, the wise man started seeking me. That's it. So even to become an artha or an artharthi, it may take many lives. One has any number of births before one recognizes the fundamental problem and seek a solution. So it's a consolation, not a problem. The very fact that we are sitting here on a Tuesday evening around 9:30 and studying Bhagavad Gita indicates that, yeah, so it means we might have done some good karma, and that is why we get an opportunity to study. So this Jnanavan in this particular verse indicates that one whose mind after many births is mature enough to start seeking this knowledge. So it is going to take many births before you identify the problem, and it may take many births to get your mind purified and stabilized. So once the mind is purified and stabilized, this jnanam will take place. And jnanavan also means that one who has this knowledge. But in this particular verse, it tells like the jnanavan, after a lot of birth, he becomes, means recognize the problem. Once the problem is recognized, he will work, and then finally he will reach the destination. So the evolution in modern management, they say that unconsciously ignorant initially. People don't even recognize that they are ignorant. A lot of people you can see outside. Then what? Consciously ignorant. That is what we are. And immediately after that, what is going to happen? Once you gain the knowledge, consciously knowing, and finally unconsciously knowing. The Mahatma don't have to follow any yoga or anything like that. He will automatically, whatever he does becomes yoga. So that's the stages. So this jnani state is very hard to achieve. It may take many birth and many maturity to attain. So don't be sad. It is not as a problem. He said that if you started seeking the spiritual path for the last 5 years or 10 years, don't worry. It may take some time. You are on the right path. None of your effort will be wasted, and it will be carried forward to the next birth, and it will continue. So continue your work. So one more thing, he said that jnani understands something, right? He tells Vasudeva Sarvamiti. So what is Vasudeva? Who is Vasudeva? Can anybody explain what is the name of the term Vasudeva, the meaning of the term Vasudeva? Seriously? Can you hear me?
Deva
Yeah. Vasudeva traditionally used to name Sri Krishna. Correct? Because his dad was Vasudeva. And the son of Vasudeva is Vasudeva. But the word Vasudeva has a larger implication. So you can see in Vishnu Purana, Dhruva, when he was, means Dhruva's lineage is much before Krishna and Rama, right? He is the son of Uttanapalaka, who is the direct, means Manu is the first human being per our Hindu belief system. Manu is the first human being, and his son was Uttanapalaka, and his son was Dhruva. So Dhruva's existence is much before Krishna. And Dhruva, when he went to forest exclusively to seek Vishnu, Lord Vishnu, and pray, Narada happens to come there, and he gives him a mantra. And that mantra is nothing but Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So it's not much more than Krishna. Vasu or Vas means that which fills everything. That's what it is, right? So if I ask you, right, what exactly fills a golden ornament? It is gold, isn't it?
Yeah, gold.
Gold, right? So if you take a pot, what exactly a pot is filled with?
Clay.
Clay. And if you take a wave, what exactly is that wave is filled with? Water. So what if you take that, right? I can say that it is the fundamental particle that constitutes the entire universe. That is what is the Vas. And the Lord of that, what is that? Absolute reality, the Brahman, the Paramatma. So that is what is Vasudeva. So please understand that. And by the way, this is the commentary of Shankaracharya of the Vishnu Sahasranama. So Vasudeva is defined as he is the Lord of that which perverts, that which constitutes every matter. Means all the material principle, he is the Lord of that. Because technically speaking, from Paraprakriti only the Aparaprakriti came in. And the Aparaprakriti is not separate from Paraprakriti, right? Abhinna, Nimitta, Upadana Karanam. If you remember, that is the study we did sometimes back. So since that is the cause, that is considered as Lord of all the Apara Prakriti, and this Apara Prakriti is known as Vasudeva. It's an indicative name, right? So Vishnu Sahasranama, every name is a pointer that points to the absolute reality. So this is one name. So this Jnani, what he recognized, Vasudevaha Sarvamiti. Everything in this universe is Vasudeva. Everywhere, because that is what the Vas is. Everything, that which fills everything. So when I see a sun, he recognized that that is Vasudeva. Even though it appears as a sun, the fundamental matter or the fundamental principle that constitute that sun, it is nothing but the Vasudeva that expresses as sun. It is nothing but the Vasudeva that expresses as tree. In the 15th chapter, we will see, as sunlight, I give you the energy. As plant leaves, I absorb that energy and cook food for you, right? And then as your organs, inner organs, right? I help you to digest that food. And then as blood, I help you to circulate that food in every cell. Look at the cycle. It's so beautiful. So he understands that everything is nothing but Vasudeva. Every order is Vasudeva's order. Every object is Vasudeva. And that Vasudeva I'm seeking is non-separate from my Atma. So I am also part of Vasudeva. So this Jnani sees very clearly that the only Satyam in the world is Atma or Vasudeva, which is the Brahman. And recognize therefore that everything is Vasudeva. So in a huge ocean, like a small wave, a medium wave, and infinite number of waves, every wave started to recognize that everything, whether it is a small wave, drop of water, or a large wave, everything is nothing but water. And in this knowledge, he reaches Ishvara. And it is very hard to find such a person, because only after many births, you feel the maturity to recognize this truth. And even after that, it takes some time to gain the experience in that. So Vasudeva Sarvamahi, Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. This is what the conclusion is. So that concludes the 3 verses I was planning to cover today. So we saw 3 verses. The first verse we saw was, of course, we started with a quick recap on the 4 types of devotees: Artha, Artharthi, Jijnasu, Jnani. And then we saw that out of all these devotees, their connection with Ishvara has different means and scope. For Artha, he seeks Ishvara for what? For removing his sorrow. Artharthi seeks Ishvara for gaining some pleasure. And Jijnasu seeks Ishvara for knowing the Ishvara. Whereas Jnani, he has already established that Nitya Yukta, that connection. Always the Nitya Yukta connection is there. So then Krishna tells, out of all the devotees, for him, I am very dear to me, because his devotion is Eka Bhakti, and he is Nitya Yukta, and he sees myself as separate from me. I mean, he don't see himself as separate from me. So he is the most dearest devotee to me. That doesn't mean that the other devotees are not dearest, because they are separate. For me, Jnani is part of me itself. And finally, he said, it is going to take many births for anybody to get this maturity and seek this path. And once you seek, even it may take some time to recognize this truth. And once you recognize it, he will see that Vasudeva Sarvamiti, meaning everything in this universe is Vasudeva. And such a person is very rare to find. 3 more minutes. Any questions or comments?
Yeah. Rajesh, now he's saying everything is Vasudeva, right? So just for argument's sake, the Vaishnavites, they just do Saranagati and then they just say you are everything and they surrender themselves. That's what their motto is. So where is the limitation?
the question is which limitation? The Vaishnavites, when they say that you are
Yeah,
everything and
yeah,
surrender. But
yeah.
the difference is for that person, right? When you say you are everything, they are not identifying himself. The person who is surrendering is separate from Ishvara. So that
Oh,
dualism is there.
so that, okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the exact.
That dualism is there. But
But,
whereas a person who recognizes this truth, for him, and that's what Krishna was clarifying in the previous verse, right? He's me. So that dualism is gone.
and in that, Swamiji says one thing: if he is minus you, he is not everything. And if Ishvara is inert, he depends entirely upon you to be known like any other inert object. What does that mean?
So Ishvara means is, for example, if it is an object that is separate from you, right? You have to employ a means of knowledge to know
Know
that,
you.
yeah, here it is you. And the thing is, the scope of you is not what you think who you are. The scope of real you encompasses everything in this universe.
Okay.
So the scope of water, right? So a small drop of water, a wavelet, a small drop of water, if that identifies itself as that wave, that means it is limited. He has to know the whole ocean and the water. But the moment it shifts its identity to water, the scope has changed. The water
He's
is
everything.
He is everything. So that is what the jnani. It's
great.
So honestly speaking, see, this is what Gita talks. Gita very clearly tells that Vasudeva Sarvamiti, and that Mahatma sees me as myself. And that is clarified in Gita. But a lot of people find explanation to contradict that. And this is exactly what Krishna himself tells in the 4th chapter. What? I taught this yoga at the beginning of the creation. But what happens? People starts misinterpreting it. And the teaching gets corrupted. So in between, the teaching gets so corrupted that I have to come back and restore it.
Rajeshji, one question which came in my mind. So which category we fall in actually out of those four? I mean, like
Jijnasu. Of course, Jijnasu, and of course we have the Artha and Artharthi is also there.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that it should be a mix of all. We want to get rid of dukkham. We want to enjoy, get the joy, and as well as we want to seek the God.
There is nothing wrong in that. You see, so Jijnasu means he is also an Artha, he is also an Artharthi. That is perfectly fine. And even an Artharthi, right? An Artharthi is also an Artha, because Artharthi means he recognizes the power of Ishvara or the presence of Ishvara, and he is using Ishvara to gain something. The moment he gets some problem, he is also seeking Ishvara to remove that also. So practically, right, he can be an Artharthi, also can be an Artha, and the Jijnasu can also be Artha, Artharthi, and Jijnasu. Good observation.
Got it. And the curiosity on the second part of it is like, in the recent past history, was there anyone who was in Jnani category?
It's hard for us to tell, right? It's hard for us to judge another person. And yes, actually, but history tells that there are people. I would strongly request you to go and read a small lecture by Swami Vivekananda, and this lecture is known as My Master.
Okay.
My Master. So if you can go to Google, the complete means just Google My Master Swami Vivekananda. This was a lecture he delivered in New York or England, because he was in United States, and a lot of people asked him, who is your teacher? Till then, he never tried to promote any teachers or any other thing. He was just focused on Vedanta. So in one lecture, he introduced this topic. And all these different types of bhaktas and jnanis and all these things comes in. So in that, he paints the picture of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa as a jnani. So again, like history tells, Shankaracharya as a realized master, Ramana Maharshi as a realized master, And every organization claim their guru as a realized master. We don't know, right? Honestly
Yeah,
speaking.
that's true. Yeah, that's true.
And
Swamiji,
it's a 100-page ebook on Google. First link when you
Wow.
search.
Okay, great. Excellent.
And Rajesh, if you can share that Gayatri Mantra book also, I was trying to search that. Couldn't find them in
The Gayatri
the
Mantra is
exact.
Tune in the Mind.
Tune in the Mind. Okay.
That is the book.
Okay.
Yeah, that when you try to buy it in Kindle, it's actually not available in the US. If you have an Indian credit card, it goes to Amazon.in and you can buy that. So
Oh,
currently
okay.
not.
It's actually available online to read. I'll share the site. It's
Oh.
it's free on one of the internet sites. I forget the exact site right now, but it's free to read online. I'll share the website with everybody.
So the
Awesome.
tune
Thank you.
in the mind. It's the beauty is that at the end, Swami Chinmayananda describes one of his experience. He tells like in Kedarnath, supposed to be Kedarnath is the place Shankaracharya attained his samadhi. Like that is the place he left his body. In Kedarnath, he got a handwritten commentary on Gayatri Mantra, supposed to be attributed to Shankaracharya. We don't know whether it is Shankaracharya or not, but he said he is reproducing that with the meaning. So first time I'm seeing a commentary, a bhashya on Gayatri Mantra. It's well written. It's beautiful. So it's there at the end.
Thank you.
Just
Yeah.
one question.
Yeah.
It may take multiple birth to get that maturity, but is it from birth to birth? Is it always a progress? Can we say that?
Not necessarily, right? So there is now certain free will is there. Not 100% free will is there, but sometimes we can choose to go down also, like sometimes. So it is entirely depending upon how do we make use of that birth. Again, we don't know, but the karma will force you to do good. That is the positive thing. So generally means once you reach to a jitnyasu level, the typical progress would be positive, because because even if you try to go against it, the power of karma is so good that it will take you to the right destination. So again, there is no logic or scientific absolute measures to say that, but I think these are all, we have to take it in the positive spirit. Sometimes the power of karma is so good. How does all of us started studying Gita? It's all karma, right? Most of us, even our dads or some of them may have, right? But I know a lot of people in our group, they are the first people in their family started studying Gita.
Me too.
Me too.
Are there any indicators as to what level one might be at?
Certainly, like in the 14th chapter and 15th chapter, certain indicators are given, so you can do a profiling of yourself. This is not to judge anybody, but Krishna gives some tips. It's like looking at a dashboard. So one of the skill you need to develop is something called self-awareness, right? So how do you develop that? So for that, some tips and tricks are given. It's all like a dashboard. So dashboard is just an indicator, a projection, statistical projection. So for most, if this is your temperament, this would be your exhibition of certain characteristics. So from that, you are extrapolating it. So that is what, using the Sattva Rajas Tamas model, 14th, 15th, and 16th chapter. No, 14th, 16th, and 17th chapter, you have a detailed description. So we will see that.
14, 16, and 17.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Long way to go.
Long way to go. Actually, if you are curious, go and listen to Vikrant's talk. He's just covering one chapter in one lecture. So I think they did the first chapter. They're going to do two lectures per chapter. So he's starting second chapter next week. So
yeah, first chapter is covered so far. Second
chapter is coming. So because it's a larger group, almost 500 plus people are watching. So you cannot do this type of class with that wide audience. It's impossible.
Are you attending, Sanjay ji?
Yeah. It's a 7 o'clock morning on Saturday, every Saturday.
Wonderful.
Sunday, right?
Listen to the recorded ones.
Sorry,
because
Sunday. Sorry,
the
yeah, Sunday.
timings is
Yeah.
not.
On Sunday now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sunday now.
Recordings will be posted actually.
Yeah, I listen to that.
Yeah. It's a high level talk, meaning you cannot go deep into verses and get all these type of details there. But it's for, I understand that this is for a larger audience. 500 plus people are watching through different sources. So a word by Santi Vicheda and a detailed analysis is impossible. And once this is over, they're going to create smaller groups in Hindi.
Once they have the edited videos up online, then I'll have the podcasts also ready for that.
Yeah. You can check with means Aditi is going to do that. So
Rajesh, aren't the podcasts available right away or not?
As soon as it is published in YouTube.
As soon as the videos are published online, then I make them and then I post them. Yeah.
Okay. So this is for Vikranji's.
Yeah.
Vikranji's also. Yeah. So if you go into a podcast and just search for Project Gita Hindi, you will find the Hindi ones.
Okay, excellent. So, Bhunaji, if you can chant Purnamada, we will stop here. And I will try my best to do the Atma Bodha this week. So, most probably we'll have it. Otherwise, apologies.
No problem.
Thank you.
Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you.
Hari Om. Thank you so much, Rajesh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rajesh.